If it bleeds, it leads, and if it bleeds, it feeds. The one of eyes, and I who bring you this festival of fear. If it bleeds, it leads, and if it bleeds, it sees. The devouring eyes, and I who recite you this carnival of crime. If it bleeds, it leads, and if it bleeds, it reads. The hunger of eyes, and I who you this parade of pain. If it bleeds, it leads, and if it bleeds, it needs. The sanction of eyes, and I who perform you this theater of the theft. If it bleeds, it leads, and if it bleeds, it heeds. The fickleness of eyes, and I who play you this symphony of sin. If it bled, it led. The broken, the dead. The aversion of eyes, and I who sing you this lyric of loss. The world is constantly in motion. There's no beginning or end. Establishing fixed point agendas. The ego subjugates our travels. We must open ourselves to the world. Attempts at control and management to better the world, enforce the worst forms of violence and the worst mindset. Slabbered are one. Open yourself to loss. You are one with you. Can accept it. The willingness to encourage you to face reality, to deal with suffering, facing reality, until the harmony with the Tao. The openness that insight you into your own nature only possible when you have reduced your ego. The lazy ego, the less you suffer, the let go of dealing with the moment on his death. He is free. He knows that death, like life, is an illusion. No beginning, no end. Plans, aims, objectives, and agendas that become the routes of suffering. Agendas take spontaneity and joy out of life. People become bad travelers and arriving at their destination to find their destination are not really worth the trouble to become. Like a traveler entails a good change of attitude, tampering with the world, to improve the world. The world is sacred. If you tamper with the over and treat it like an object, you'll lose the century of social engineering, simplistic ideologies like fascism were used to change the world with terrible consequences, inducing suffering on a scale never before seen in savage economic system. On greed, politicians show their ignorance by tampering with the sacred, the age of management, manipulating society. There's a counterforce violence rebounds upon itself. The universe is forever out of control, trying to dominate events. It goes against the current. Understanding the universe is out of control and is key. And rationalist attempts to understand the world to direct policy based on the best future option. Their approach to life detaches themselves from the world, turning all us into a managed object. We can never find the best policy option. Petman 05. The rationalist talks of the hypothetical deductive method. The Taoist talks of the mysterious order through all things. The rationalist and detach an individuate and intellectual vantage point, separate from society, free reign to congregate and communicate. The Taoist talks to hearts and minds on focusing, allowing themselves to act with the immediacy of an echo of particular foreign policy. Only reach of our Taoists know they tend to issue conscious law to attend instead of the social situation. The rationalist understands options A, B, and C and believes that in one in each and advance to a face of what will turn out it is not possible to do, and to base it will turn out of the right choosing one policy option. The other cease to exist, contemplating alternatives was futile in the first place. Making decisions on such contemplations makes no sense. It is not possible to know rationally what is in the national interest. There is a self-fulfilling quality of the modernist project and the advocacy. We affirm a remodeling the journals. All the debates have presumed one model of journals. The Western interpretation, we say it's key to open ourselves to new interpretations of reality and affirmation of spontaneity and pedagogical linguistics. As storytelling creates a new journalism in which we replace the Western process of consumptive journalism, we open journalism to open processual communication. Bartley 2:16. Regarding journalism, the process of news reporting, journalists, editors, and consumers have played important roles in the plot of the systematic thinkers as to Eastern philosophical concepts of Taoism and Hinduism promoted by Eastern philosophical theories of communication. This approach regards happiness as a process. Storytelling challenges the journalism model, which has been subsumed under market economy philosophy. Private consumption storytelling requires mindfully thinking and practice applicable to both traditional and digital media. And language has no finality and objectivity. Semantics can't be pinned down when we identify and privilege some communication. It creates controlled order over language. Losing Guattari 80. One has made it impossible to conceive of language as a code. Second has made it impossible to define semantics. Degree makes it impossible to maintain this distinction between language and speech. Syntax of language can no longer be defined independently of the speech. It presupposes society supplied by semiotics regimes, or in fact makes a light of assemblage is always like this. Remember, there's need to discuss a front and Kikito, but it's a Kikito that makes self-consciousness the incorporeal in transformation in the order world, permitting one to feel absolved of the order of worlds, how one has to be followed and then abandoned in order to welcome others. And liberal framing of the individual and state separates us from collective unity. It creates a binding proposition, eliminating new ideas, vocabulary, and language. Shen 12. It is important to recognize powers and limits of the discursive position of the lone individual against the state, like a man facing a tank in an empty square with no context but reference to human rights, adopting the liberal programmatic version of vision. Human rights, the individual confronts the all-powerful apparatus of the same. We find ourselves in a political bind with no other vocabulary available. The discourse of rights interprets those who invoke the charging subject not of empowerment but for inequality, life, liberalism. The discourse of human rights is behind every form of social progress. And framing. A value around based on the debate who cultivates the best approach to life, not the best decisions. It never happens. No way. Solvency claims they have to first win their framing of life itself is the best before you privilege their claims. As debate isn't a question of what should be done, but rather how we should live. We shouldn't privilege the human over all else, but because we can rationally act upon a decision, we say, why not be a banana slug? Kirkland 98. The modern mind finds it's easy to reject interpretation. They fail to solve our problems in a happy way. They challenge us to question whether we ought to try to solve this or with humans and humanism that humans are different and superior. Refusal to engage in problem solving would reduce us to the banana slug. They deny teachings that defend our modern perspectives. Western humanism makes the mistake of assuming the ability to intervene in life events and to translate into a moral duty. Or intervention is disrupted at all involved. We have a moral duty to refrain in taking such actions. Taoists who told us to leave the world and advocate a form of beneficent involvement in the world we dismiss as impossible because it's inconceivable. The teaching the transformation oneself into a state, being a corresponding effect on everyone and everything, extending ultimately to involve the whole world. And Western rational thought has been used to exclude Eastern thought. This is culminating in Eurocentric policy causing racism and discrimination. Stoller 92. The construction of colonial categories and national identities, but those people who ambiguously straddle across and threaten the imperial divides, cultural sensibilities, physical beings, the political sentiments, made maintaining the needy boundaries of colonial world European nationalism impulses and colonialist racist policies and conflation of racial categories, sexual morality, cultural competence, and national identity allows me to address the relationship between discourses of inclusion, humanitarianism, equality, and foreign liberal policy in colonial Southeast Asia, and the exclusionary discriminatory practices inherent in liberalism itself, and the poetic advocacy of the AF is in favor of cultivating the flow of water, to affirm a new flow and possibility of life. It meets our framing best. Kirkland 96. The Taoist yielding and honest certainty gives us all life and guides us through safely through it, asking nothing in return. Water is the gentlest and most yielding of all things and can overcome the strongest substances and cannot itself be destroyed. Water lives for others. The basis of life learns to live like water. We will be living in accord with the Tao and its power will carry us safely calling we non-action of or all activity intended to affect desired ends which should follow. Once natural force, all other things do likewise less our willful interference disrupts things, powers, proper flow. Crossings. Yep.
Do you get offense from the reading of the AC?
We would. What do you mean? Like
do you get offense from the act of reading the one AC?
We would say we get offense from defending the AC.
Okay. Do you get offense from the poem?
We would say the poem is part of the story of the act.
Okay. Cool. Does everyone have access to your methodology, or are there some people who could be excluded?
I'm pretty sure most people have access to it. I don't know, like it would be your burden to prove that people are excluded from it.
Yeah, so like if Trump stands up and wants to engage in this, would he be able to engage in your methodology?
I mean, it would be pretty sick if Donald Trump like let his ego go and was like less fascist. We would say if he engaged in the app, that would be pretty sweet, as the Slabbert 01 evidence indicates.
Okay, cool. Do you defend the resolution?
We defend a remodeling of journalists.
Yeah, so do you defend giving a reporter's privilege to journalists?
We don't defend a form of implementation.
Okay.
Is that enough? Okay.
Or no, do you defend like a reporter's privilege?
No, we defend a remodeling of the journalists. We indicate that this topic's been pretty fucked up.
Yeah. If language has no like finality and objectivity, how do we evaluate the one you see?
Sure. So we would say just because language has no finality or objectivity doesn't mean we can't have interpretations of objectivity. Discriminatory 80 indicates that when we have pure bindings of what language means.
Okay, so if we have different interpretations, you stand up and you say, I'm winning this, you should vote AF, why can't that also be interpreted as you should vote nay?
Sure, that would come down to the judge's discretion on how they evaluate the arguments.
Okay.
Like, things are contestable. So like if I say I'm winning the round, maybe you could prove that you're actually winning the round, or maybe the judge thinks neither of us are losing the round. Like, different language in what we say is contestable.
Okay. If the negative stands up and read a poem, do I also like gain offense from this like poetic advocacy argument?
Well, we would say that the poem, we wouldn't say just reading a poem is important. We would say what the poem is doing. So we're saying that when we're reading the poem, we contextualize this in terms of remodeling the resolution, remodeling journalism. So you would have to like do your own work to weigh under our framing and say like why you're reading a poem is important. And at that point, you'd just be agreeing with the app more than likely. So.
Right. You say on the, like the Stoller 92 card, you say Western rational thought has been used to exclude Eastern thought. Can you give me an example of like any author that people read in debate that are not an example of this Western rational thought?
Sure. So we say Deleuze and Guattari are two.
Cool.
They've taken influence from Taoism. There are others as well if you want me to start listing people.
Okay, cool. That's fine. Running prep. Okay, 304 left. Let me just write that down. The order will be 6 off case. I don't know if I'm going to get through all 6 off, but we'll see. I'm setting up. Alright, is it cool if I borrow your stand?
Yeah. Oops.
Tell me when you're good.
It's loading.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Alright, everybody good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Interpretation: the affirmative must disclose their plan text and standard text on the NDCA LD case wiki at least 15 minutes before the round B is a violation. He did not do that. You can literally check the screenshot that says telling me that they were not disclosing the plan text. Here they said one slim is the plan. Case list on this topic is endless. A different possible house, any philosophy, any plan. If we don't have any knowledge of it, there is no way that I can prep further on disclosing the text checks back because since it ensures that I can have a reasonable basis for preparation. Also solves any counter often about why plans are good. You good plans. You should just let the NAIC know the plan so they can actually prep, not have it sprung on them as a gotcha moment. That reading an app that doesn't defend the topic only exacerbates this because it literally doesn't. I literally had no way of knowing that this was on the topic. Impacts a bonus education. They pigeonhole and they get into generics like the will just in every single round since I didn't have any other paper. They can apply to hyper-specific apps, at least the shallow repetitive debates in a world where I have an hour to look at solve the advocate stuff like that. I can think out a case-specific strategy, custom case answers, and read your articles to understand the warrants more thoroughly, which leads to more nuanced, in-depth debates. Be blunt, fairness, unbroken. Plans are unpredictable because they can plan any part of the resolution or not the resolution at all, making it impossible to know which party is going to specify, which means the NAIC gets to prep every single one of thousands of different plans to have a shot at engaging, whereas the app only has to prep one, creating a massive prep 2 turns half-lives. Even if affirming is harder, which I will contest, you still shouldn't be able to eliminate 99% of NAIC prep. My interpretation is key to me being able to have any shot at engaging. Second argument quality, plan text disclosure, and app disclosure discourages cheap shot apps with pronounced authors and shoddy subtlety of the app is an inherent or easily defeated by 20 minutes of research. The case should lose a month to prep. The NAIC is entitled to some research trying to make sure the app is inherent, topical, and controversial. Otherwise, bad apps can win on purely surprise factor, which is a bad model because it encourages to find the most fringe surprising case possible instead of a well-researched and defensible after years of phone fairness debate is a committed activity. Nobody would compete if it wasn't fair. Education 1, school's only fun debate because it's educational. 2, educational is the only lasting benefit of the debate. Drop the debate around new apps. Say point there like a disclosure makes substance irreparably because our entire argument is that we do not have a basis to engage with the app to begin with. The B-bunch of the argument means they lose since they lose their entire advocacy and cannot have offense theories committing in terms 1, reasonability is an overall by church intervention. 2, reasonability collapses to competing terms. No RBIs, 1 baiting such debate and social debate theory and prep it means we still have maximally abusive practices in the world. The RBI sick and chilling. In fact, people won't read theory and they want to see because they know that you can just take the 1 hair and the 2 hair to reframe the theory debate and beat me back on the RBI, and don't let them leverage case or the role of the ballot or any of the offense from case because I could not engage with case in the first place, so the theory shell is a prerequisite to me being able to engage in case. Second off, use of educational spaces as a site of empowerment places the judgment of the role of the authoritarian adjudicator of all students in accordance with a particular political end record. Violence is implicit. The conviction that schooling for self and social empowerment is ethically proper presumption that the teacher knows best because the concept of schooling particular by reinscribed an authoritarian model that is congruent with the pedagogy that school, the student improper behavior for pedagogy to camouflage pedagogical violence in their move from one mode of normalization to another. Third off, their impacts are based off the performance of their argument rather than the argument itself. It destroys critical thought by proliferating an ideal wherein evidence is valueless. Gordon. A picture of the contemporary intellectual climate is the war on evidence. Pseudo-intellectuals match rhetorical advance of claims where to the collapse in the commonist critical thinking is necessary, which makes evidence superfluous if there is the dense appearance of expertise that conceals an absence of thought. Both don't require thinking because their ultimate appeals appearance evidence is paradoxically that which has been hidden but revealed as a conduit for the appearance of another hidden reality. And this decadent erases the objective via overwhelming focus on the narcissistic and is subjective, rendered inevitable the decay of the discipline in question and of the search for knowledge. Gordon 2. The demands of evidence has collapsed knowledge into subjectivity. Many disciplines have collapsed into the hubris of asserting themselves in the world. They shift from articulating their own limits and conditions of the possibility and the assertion of their legitimacy in terms as social condition for life. And disciplines decline, so too do disciplines practitioners delude themselves that the elimination of opposition is the achievement of immortality, and don't let them shift out of this. They literally told me in CX that they got offense from reading the poem and the performative part of the fourth off. The role of the ballot is a vote for the debater who best offends the resolution true, the falsity, the affirmative burden to prove the resolution true, and the negative is to prove its falsity. For her one text, 5 dictionary to negate as in deny the truth of an affirmative to prove true means the sole charge obligation to vote on the resolution true, the falsity. This outweighs in common usage is abundantly clear. The rules are verified. Second, this co-ops the role of the ballot. They assume truth testing intrinsically proving one methodology. Go to SimZ, proving the truth, i.e. the statement I smell violets has the same truth value as the statement it is true that I smell the scent of violets. Then only truth testing justifies that answer. And third, the role of the ballot enforces an external norm in debate. Only truth testing is intrinsic to the process of debate, i.e. proving statement true or false or argumentation only. Only constitutional rules are necessary to practice, not pragmatics or harbor business, because practice only makes sense based on its constitutive rules, i.e. you can't make up a new rule in chess just because it's more intellectually challenging. You must adhere to the authoritative rules of the game. Fifth off. How do they know what they know? One cannot search for what they don't know, and everything you can search for you assuredly already know about. Thus, if the existence of an unknown is not in and of itself knowable, then such an unknown cannot exist in the first place. That also means one cannot learn for to know about what is already known is to learn nothing at all. That means you should vote negative on presumption, because they have neither known nor forgotten the world between 1AC and presumption and permissibility. Flow negative first, or I guess we'll tack that on later. Sixth off. Affirming negates because of the Good Samaritan paradox, paraphrasing McNamara 06. Premise 1 is the affirmative is true, not to be the case of reporters of the right to protect the identity of confidential sources. Premise 2 not to be the case of reporters of the right to protect the identity of confidential sources if and only if reporters currently do not have a right to protect the identity of confidential sources. This is because its inner logic would necessitate transferring the obligation predicate onto its necessary condition. Thus, premise 3 is the affirmative true, not to be the case of reporters do not have the right to protect the identity of confidential sources. This logically follows from if P is Q and P is Q only if and then M. This is not applied in the negative sense. It only happens when we're obligated to do something as a result of a bad occurrence. Now on the app, on the losing guitar card, if language is subjective and we can never determine whether something is true or not based on its language, then we can never determine whether or not the app whether the app is true or not. That's a reason why you should vote negative, because if we cannot determine if the app is true or not, then you can presume neg in the absence of offense. Now we're going to read those presume neg arguments. Presume neg statements are more often false and true because any part can be false. This means you negate if there is no offense because the resolutions are probably false. Be more resolved means firmly determined to do something, so without a proactive reason to affirm, we wouldn't be firmly determined and the resolution would be false. C point, when policymakers can't come to a conclusion, they don't pass a bill, they shelve it for later debate. And on the app again, second argument, they disregard their argument about Wu Wei. They're literally engaging in debate. They have a judge to regulate this and they're following speech time, and they're not like miscutting evidence, and they're answering my question in the CX. These are all reasons why they still engage in the debate and do not engage in like this Wu Wei methodology, meaning that you should drop them because they don't actually meet their own role of the ballot. And on the role of the ballot, cross-apply their argument there. Role of the ballot enforces an external norm of debate. This means that we cannot engage if it's external because I can never predict it, which is a reason why their role of the ballot is unfair and you should not evaluate it. Also, it means that truth testing comes first because we constrain, because we're the only rule that is actually intrinsic to debate. Yeah. Do you want me to like send those permissibility analytics or anything?
If you could.
Okay.
But you can do that after CS.
Okay. Hold on, let me grab my timer.
Okay.
All right, I'm good whenever you are.
Okay. Why is truth testing true?
In what context? I don't know.
Do you make any claim to indicate that we can, in fact, measure truth?
I think we can measure the truth and falsity of the resolution.
How?
By trying to prove it true or false. Like if you look at the
resolution. Wait, but how do we prove what
is
true or false?
Sure. So the resolution in the United States, reporters ought to have the right to protect the identity of confidential sources. If you prove that that is grammatically true, or you prove that it is a true statement, or you prove that there is some net benefit to that statement, then we would say that that is proving the resolution true. Whereas proving it neg would be proving that it's like logically incoherent, or that it's grammatically incoherent,
okay.
or that there is not any net benefit or anything like that.
Do you make any leveraging in the 1NC what comes first, fairness or education?
We'd say fairness comes first.
Why?
Because it constrains our ability to get education in the first place.
When you hit a new app, does every different case tend to have like a different form of framing?
What do you mean?
So, like, if one person reads a util aff and another person reads a cont aff, wouldn't that be two examples of two different frameworks?
I've only hit util affs this tournament, and I think your aff is like a radical departure from like debate norms, which is a reason why.
Wait, how do we judge that bright line?
Like, you want me to give you a quantitative way to figure out?
I'm just saying, is there a way to quantitatively evaluate that? Like, is there a bright line we can establish?
On like how far your aff departs from debate norms?
Yeah.
Well, I think the fact that you don't defend the resolution would be a reason why you do. I think the fact that like you probably can't find this framework anywhere else on the wiki is a reason you
so
do.
just because I read a new framework, you can't engage with like a new argument?
That's the argument is that you didn't tell me anything about the aff. So not only did I not know what the app was going to be, I didn't know that it wasn't going to talk about the topic. I didn't know how to leverage offense under it. I didn't know what I was allowed to read against it.
Wait, how does the app not talk about the topic?
You told me in CX that you do not defend giving reporters a right to...
You're right, we don't defend it, but how does the app not talk about the topic? Like, is that your bright line?
Sorry if I misspoke, I meant to say defend the topic.
Okay, so the bright line is that we'd have to like defend the topic for you to be able to engage in a framework.
Well, the bright line is that you would have to tell me the standard text before the round.
Where's the standard text in the app?
That's just... You
right,
talk
like,
about,
it seems like your
framework.
It seems to imply that your interp semantically says we have to evaluate a plain text and a standard. If the app has neither of those, how am I supposed to tell you?
You would just tell me the framing mechanism.
Okay, that's not what your interp says, but that's fine. Let's talk about, you indicate that the roll the ballot is co-opted on the fourth off. How's the roll the ballot co-opted?
I think that, yeah, that's the second justification. So we never know if your roll the ballot, like you saying your roll the ballot assumes that it is a true statement, i.e. like saying I smell violets says it is true that I smell violets.
Okay.
We're the only ones that prove that that statement is true.
Okay, starting Brett.
I'll send those permissibility arguments to things.
Right, C spread 116 left. What is going to be AC? Starting on framing. Yeah, starting on framing. Then it will be the T shell. It'll be theory. Then Rickard's. Yeah, it'll just be the order of the NC. Case NC order. Yes. All right, judge ready? Opponent ready? Is there a dog? No, no dog. Okay. Purchase and framing, it goes conceded. This is quite damning. It's in Currently 98 that you prefer the best approach to life as framing. Indicates that the world is constantly in motion, evolving, all in relation. I take a walk outside my shoe prints in the dirt, open up water to flow new paths for I breathe in an oxygen exhale, and CO2 into the atmosphere, analyze the world in singular discrete actions, separating the mind, and the world ignores harmony, and the world it constructs false truths. The world is like water. Sometimes it becomes blocked, flowing past the neg merely constructs another rock in the river. Debate slip past to judge. Be open to the banana slug instead of the computer we made, humanity in which we constantly evaluate so-called coded truths and fundamental objectifications. One is real advocacy. We analyze how as debaters we are students interact with the space in each other. Second, beyond his illusion routines, arrogance, decision-making, calculuses, or so-called truth claims, as Petman indicates with further justification. Third is Western humanism is enforced by the negative, excludes alternative framing mechanisms. They create a privileged hegemonic sign in which some language and action is justified. We should shift away from the interventionist logic that has the false justification of moral duty, which justifies forms of repression historically done so with forms of colonialism as we can act against these so-called savage or unpredictable Easterns. And four, our framing opens to a plurality of interpretations, possibilities for the debate, and creates a better form of educational space, no longer excluding the so-called irrational, which means we control the internal to education. We specify the form of education that we prefer over that of the negative interpretation, which means always comes first. And extend the poem and extending advocacy. We analyze the problem with Western journalism. There's obsession, discuss suffering as a process of consumption. We lead the reader with riveting sources and essays of recontextualization. Journalism doing means of storytelling. We don't oppose pure objectivity and answer and error. That's the rightly took evidence, but because it leaves it open, fluctuating process to achieve new views of life in the world, one of harmony and unity, rather than planting the ego and separating ourselves from the world. Western journalism turns the story, the source in the world, into a possibility. We meet framing by remodeling the journalism away from the traditional binding interpretation and creates a better model for how we approach this resolution. This resolution's been pretty damn binding on how we evaluate all the rounds. It's just been utilapse and condensees. Now, on case sensitivity with a rollabout, we have to have an external rule. However, we say we don't have a rollabout, so it doesn't mean. And secondarily, we indicate that the specific way in which we engage it, we contextualize how a debate should operate. He indicates we know the constitutivism. However, we don't have constitutive rules as the framing argument which he concedes. And he says no, we have because we engage. However, we still say we can engage in debate to see symbolic meaning of our language. And on DNG 80, he says that we're still subjective. However, we indicate that just because we're subjective doesn't mean we can't have preferences or we can make some ruling on what we prefer. And we just say we can universally or normally have the preference. And he says the resume on such as justifications. We still do something. They have to have something. We indicate we do a variety of remodeling in the educational spaces, which is preferable. And he also says we should analyze through policymakers. However, you can cross by the stolen 92 evidence and the correctly 98 evidence, which indicates looking to policymakers as the rational cost calculators is a negative form of debate. He concedes framing, which means it takes out the argument. And on theory one, there's no plan text nor standard. If he wants to look to truth or semantics, it means we mean there's no offense coming off of the theory. And second, cross by the DNG 80 evidence, which indicates that semantics has no pure meaning, which means we can use a fluid form of interpretation of their interpretation, which means we look away from the binding interpretation. Additionally, on limits, limits and ground, they still have the opportunity to read Wilderson, they could read Baudrillard, they could read Kant, they could read Hobbes, they could read DNG. These are different options they still have, but they chose not to. And on education comes versus the terminal goal is why schools fund debate. Additionally, you can extend, you can cross by, we can use cross applications of framing as we can weigh the story against the opposite. They never attempt to resolve framing, meaning they can never try to engage. They must always be ready to engage in new framing, even if they don't want to engage the offense of the app. And there's no topical version of the app, which means we buy back into the, we indicate you can cross by the advocacy evidence, and we need to be able to redefine the journals. Otherwise, it bites into Western rationalism, and this is an independent voters theory forces the binding form of Western rationalism. It's an independent voters one. We control the internally fair debate spaces, and we include more interpretations of life. We need epistemological pluralism to be able to confirm what is fair. B, fairness is used to exclude certain bodies, and B, second, we best meet the educational claims that's on curriculum, so we control the internally fairness claims. And on the next record evidence, one they link by applying to educational norms on the theory shall they performatively link look away from record. And on the performance arguments, we indicate it's the argument based off of our performance, not the performance independently. They never contest our, the argument behind performance, and they say we should look to objectivity can cross by the extension of Kirkland 92 and Petman, which indicates that there is no form of objectivity or rationalism, which means we can never meet it. And on truth testing, there's no form of truth that's conceded from the framing that's a Kirkland 98 evidence. Second, there's no role of ballot, which means all of the arguments semantically fall, and because there's no truth, we can never look to truth testing, which means we will reopen the debate space for our educational claims. And on the presumption argument, so we provide a better form of education, which is ultimately the determinant goal of debate. And on the, they say affirming votes neg. However, this is relying on truth testing. We say there's no truth. That's conceded.
Running pro. What was the B point on why theory is an independent voter?
So there are 2 points, but there's a B point in the first point. So
okay, what's the second point then?
That we meet the educational claims because like our pluralism through the Kirkland 98 evidence through a lack of like binding Western rational framing is a better educational means for debate as it's like pluralistic.
Okay, what's the implication of the independent voter?
We would say that we control the internal link to your voters, which means it is a voter to drop you.
Okay. The order will be T, Rickert, Truth Testing, Good Samaritan, and AC. Just in the order of the arguments I made on the F when we get there. Okay. Alright, everybody good?
So, theory, Rickert,
Truth
testing, Good Samaritan, AC, order of NC.
Yeah, just like top down, I guess.
Cool.
If you float the arguments top down. Alright, everybody good?
Yeah.
Judge, you good?
Yes.
Okay.
Will concede the I me to the shell. This means theory is not part of the debate. This means they also didn't read a counter-interpretation, so extend theory is competing in terms because reasonability is no balance and by judge intervention. This means that they cannot win on the theory debate. The only thing we need to do is respond to their independent voter. We're going to go for. Actually, we're gonna extend the B point under limits as a response to their independent voter. This means that their affirmative meant that we could not engage in the round, and we could not engage. We didn't have a way to prep against the app. We didn't have a way to understand the app. I still don't know what the app says, and look where that's gotten me. We don't have a way to engage in the app, which means that there is no engagement in the round. This takes out their independent voter. They say that the theory is a form of Western rationalism. However, engagement is the first step to being able to break down Western rationalism. If to be able to identify something bad within the debate space, we need to be able to have both debaters engage in it, so that we can foster methods of breaking it down, meaning that engagement comes first, and theory was our only way to create engagement. Also, all of their arguments might be like methodological pluralism fail if we cannot engage. This also means they say they're best for education, but their affirmative means it would be bad to drop me off of theory if you want to increase education and help me learn. Also, they say they meet the educational claims of the shell. This isn't an independent voter. It's just a reason why they meet the shell, and it's not a reason to drop me. So insofar as engagement comes first, you cannot drop me off of this shell because of the independent voter argument on record. Extend Rickert. The use of educational spaces as a site of empowerment and places the judge in the role of the authoritarian adjudicator or mold sentence in accordance to a particular political end. What he is telling you to do is to embrace Wu Wei. He's telling you that you to sign your ballot in a way that embraces Wu Wei and breaks down the debate space. That forces you into a position where you know best. The teacher knows best and can form the students into a particular political end. Obviously, that's a pretty terrible thing, and negates under his role, under his framing mechanism of increasing the best way of life or whatever it was. Obviously, if you're forcing people to do things, if you're striating certain individuals and you're forcing us into a mold, that's obviously terrible under their framing mechanisms. They say theory is a link. However, we are not embedding hope in the ballot and trying to say that the judge knows best. We are trying to create a way to engage. This means that theory is not a link because we are not saying that the judge knows best. We're saying this is why your app is unfair and why we should have been able to engage in it, but you made it so that we could not. This means that theory is not a link to this. Also, we're not going for theory, so even if it is, it doesn't matter because we're not going for it. So this negates under their role of the ballot. We're winning offense there. Even if you don't buy that, we're going to go for truth testing. Extend the role of the ballot to vote for the debater who best defends the resolution true, the falsity, the affirmative version to prove the resolution true, and the negative is to prove it's falsity. We're going to go for the second and third. We're going to go for the second and third argument. The second argument is that their role of the ballot intrinsically presumes truth testing, i.e., or their framing mechanism, I guess. They read the entire app with the presupposed conception that it is true, i.e., the statement "I smell violence" has the presuppose the conception that is a true statement. So, but we are the only role of the ballot that allows us to prove that true in the first place, meaning that you default to truth testing. Even if you don't buy that, we're going to go for the third argument, which is also a takeout to their entire affirmative. That their framing mechanism and their affirmative is not a constitutive rule of debate. The only constitutive rule is proving the resolution true or false through argumentation. This is important because if you were playing chess, you could not make up a new rule because it's more educational or because it increases Wu Wei. You have to adhere to the authoritative rules of the game. They just make cross applications from the affirmative, but insofar as they've conceded the constitutive claim, this means that even if their role of the ballot is good for the debate, even if it could be good in the debate space, it's still truth testing still comes first because it's the only way that we can engage in the round. Now on the Good Samaritan paradox. They say there is no truth. That's their only response. Sorry about that. But we're going to go for the Good Samaritan paradox. Affirming negates because of the Good Samaritan paradox. Premise one is that if the app is true, it ought to be the case. The reporters have the right to protect the identity of confidential sources or whatever the app says. Premise two is it ought to be the case that the app is true if the app is not true right now. Premise three is if the app is true, it ought to be the case that the app is not true. This logically follows from if P is Q and P is Q only if N, then N. They say that there is no truth, and that takes out the Good Samaritan paradox. However, the Good Samaritan paradox is not saying that there is the truth rather that the voting affirmative is circular, and saying the voting affirmative does not work. This paradox doesn't rest on whether or not there is truth. It rests on whether or not you prove the affirmative true and win the affirmative. The argument is if the aff wins, then you vote negative. You can extend this across the flow. This negates under our role the ballot of truth testing,
and we'll win that truth exists too.
On the negative, we're going to go for the argument that you can't evaluate the 1AC because of the DNG card. They say that you can have preferences, you can have but you just can't have universal norms. However, the judge always voting for the debater who wins, or the judge always voting for the affirmative if they win the debate is a universal norm. There's no reason why in the context of this debate you cannot vote negative. Their argument against this is not a reason to affirm. So insofar as the DNG argument that takes out any reason to affirm or negate, it triggers permissibility. You can extend, it triggers presumption because there is no offense in the round. You can extend the second reason to the first reason to presume neg. The statements are more often false than true because any part can be false. This means that you negate if there is no offense because the resolution or the affirmative is probably false. This means that insofar as we've proven that neither side, if it comes down to it, if neither side has any offense, you're going to negate. Our only argument is that the affirmative remodels debate, but that's not a reason why you should presume aff in the absence of offense because they do not do anything. If the aff is most likely true if there is no offense. Also, on the role of the ballot debate, you can extend the argument that we control engagement with the affirmative because if you don't, if your framing mechanism is not a constitutive role of debate, are you proving statement true or false or argumentation, then we cannot engage. This is a reason. This was framed as a reason why you should reject their framing mechanism because the negative functionally cannot engage in the round under their framing.
The round breaks down clearly. No, there's no offense coming off theory. We're winning our role of the ballot. We're winning Rickert under their role of the ballot. They've conceded Good Samaritan. They've conceded presumed neg.
Right. Taking the last 104 or 116, starting now. Okay, order's going to be AC starting on framing, then it'll be case proper, responses on AC, then we'll go Rickert, Good Samaritan, actually Rickert, truth testing, Good Samaritan, theory.
I'm sorry, I need the disclosure page in this. I need the disclosure page in order.
Yeah, at the end.
Okay, Judge ready? Yeah.
Opponent ready?
Okay.
First, this argument against the poem or the advocacy or the offense of the app, you can extend the poem. We still provide a recontextualization of journalism, which we provide a better educational and pedagogical approach to the resolution fundamentally by remodeling what it means to actually be a journalist, which means we're still gaining offense. In addition, we're gaining offense on the two evidences that provides a better connection to that of Taoism and that of harmony and unity by removing the ego from the removing the ego and forms of consumption from that of journalism. The poem indicates that we constantly have the ego fueling us to constantly talk about the different forms of consumption, talk about different forms of suffering that constantly drives the form of journalism. We win that. We're a better form of educational approach to the resolution. You can extend framing this correctly 98. We provide the best approach to life because the world is constantly in motion. He concedes all 4 independent justifications why you prefer our role of the ballot throughout the round. It means we have a better real world advocacy as we evaluate the space in each other and how we interact with each other within the harmony of the world. Second is that fiat is illusory, which means we'll go for the third one, that Western humanism is enforced by the negative. This excludes alternative framing mechanisms by specifically evaluating what is true or not, as because for a long time Westerners thought it was untrue that black people or Eastern people had a possibility for rationality or truth, thus we can enslave them or commit violence against them. Means they have a bad educational approach, which means she's always there against truth testing, even if I don't prove the truth or falsity of the resolution. Fundamentally, this precedes this as an a priori issue in terms of how we're framing the debate round. It links back into the independent voter on theory fundamentally because they're creating a form of interventionist logic that justifies forms of immoral action or forms of violence against other people. This is an independent framing argument as a dissent to their framing argument in terms of truth testing, and secondarily is further offense for the Affirmative framing, and 4, it opens to a plurality of different interpretations and possibilities for the debate round. He concedes this is the best educational approach, even if he wins that truth testing is constitutive. We still analyze that by opening plurality and opening interpretation, even if he can't engage with it as well. It still opens him to more forms of plurality and forms of engagement he can engage in. Additionally, we'll cross-apply to this argument and additionally says that you can never vote because you never know what's actually happening with the after. There's no way to evaluate the truth. However, and because there's no universal way to vote, how we make this not true is there could be a double win, or there could be someone being racist, and even if they technically won the round, you could still drop them for being racist. This is their argument. Additionally, they say triggers presumption. However, we say a lack of truth for the is offense under our framing, and additionally, we remodel it into a new interpretation for the a new interpretation through our poem and through our advocacy, which means we do have offense under our framing. We indicate that we do something under our framing. Checks back against this argument. He can test within. He says Ned can't engage. However, cross-apply that he could read Wolderson, he could read Bojaard, he could read DNG. He has DNG on his wiki. He could have read that against us. However, he chose not to. He concedes the different cases he could read, which means he still has the possibility to engage. Even he could even read Kant. Now let's go on record. First, he can extend that he still links back into it. He specifically says that it's because we indicate that the teacher knows best. However, they say that the teacher knows best on their truth testing argument. If you end up buying that, they approve the truth or falsity of the resolution. Still, ultimately, they were all about it. Additionally, the theory arguments already made checks and links back into this means the record argument goes away, or they link back into it. And secondarily, it's a question of the judge choice. We don't violate your ability to open yourself. Rather, we say by voting after or looking at your framing, you open yourself to different possibilities or interpretations rather than just binding truth. And on truth testing, you can understand that he never proves that if truth is actually true or not, which means he never has access to why we look at truth testing. First, there's additionally the independent voter against it, and additionally on the good Samaritan argument, he has to prove we never prove that the app is true, which means it doesn't trigger the argument. Means we're not circular because we prove truth doesn't exist, so the app isn't true, so good Samaritan doesn't happen.